Let's speak now to the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa about their views on the formation of this government of national unity. The Secretary General, Zolani Mkiva, joins us now. Mhlekazi, good evening, and thank you very much for coming on this evening. You form part and parcel of that parliament. Now and again, you are called in, you debate matters, you sit in that house. Now you're hearing, of course, Parliament getting ready to welcome the 7th administration. New leaders will be announced. It seems as far and wide this consultation could have gone, it has not particularly reached you. Do you think the political elites are deliberately sidelining you out of the conversations?
No, good evening, Thabo, as well as the viewers. Well, we have had an outcome of an election which really was unprecedented, and I think it took all of us off guard to the extent that no one was quite certain as to what was going to prevail after this outcome. And then, because there was no outright winner, then there were these consultations between the political parties. But we realized that there were discussions that were being put on the table, coalitions, government of national unity, things like that. And we're taken aback that such discussions were happening above our heads and behind our backs as the institution of traditional leadership, in the sense that the future of the country was being discussed without us sitting on the table. And we made a point that there's a saying that says that if you are not on the table, you run the risk of being on the menu. Then we decided to say, look, if this is happening, let's try to reach out to the political parties, their leadership, because it is very wrong that we can just be overlooked and be relegated to the background on such an important occasion. And we're saying so because at all material times in the early years of the new South Africa, when there were discussions, talks about CODESA level, traditional leadership was represented, particularly Contralesa. And we have been part of this new dispensation in the last 3 years, as you pointed out in your introduction. Now, all of a sudden, there is no hand that is extended to us to hear our view, because we felt that politicians on their own, there would be a potential of conflict if they convene themselves in a matter that they have an interest, primarily as the elected political parties. Perhaps something like that needed someone else who is going to be objective to convene them, to somehow also mediate, so that the outcome is really become something that is owned by all of those political parties, regardless of the percentage that they have got in the election. So we still believe that this is very important, that it should have happened so that we can mainstream the role of the institution of traditional leadership. We are responsible for the governance of the rural communities as well as peri-urban areas of this country, which account to more than half of the population of South Africa, and therefore nothing must move forward without hearing the views of traditional leaders. Traditional leaders are the custodians of land. They are the cultural and spiritual leaders of this country, but they are also the governors of their areas. And therefore, to simply overlook them is a little bit worrisome, and it can create problems if they could find themselves taking a decision to say that they will not give their blessings to something that is suggested where they were not consulted and their views were not heard. What if a new government that now is going to have a different policy framework from the one that we have had in the last 30 years, it can take a decision to liquidate, as an example, the institution of traditional leadership. It will be very problematic.
The Institute of Traditional Leadership, how does it view the coalition ties of a African National Congress with parties that others are looking at as not necessarily progressive parties, not leaning towards the left, but leaning largely towards the right?
Well, it's going to create a disjuncture, obviously, and that's why we would be a little bit concerned But the devil is in the detail. We have not been taken into confidence. We would have loved to hear what does it entail, how is it going to work out, is it going to be sustainable? Is it not something that is going to crumble within no time because of the different outlook in the ideology of these organizations that have been put together? But where is this going to take us to insofar as transformation trajectory in the country? What is it going to do in respect of the restoration of the land to the African majority? What is it going to do in respect of economic inclusivity? Because in terms of the economy, things are still very much skewed to the erstwhile colonizers. So if we are going to have this kind of situation, so we do need a clarity in terms of these matters. And I think that the fact that we are now overtaken by the events, that it seems that tomorrow there will be progress insofar as the swearing in and the election of the president. We are going to look on how the government itself is constituted, but we continue to engage. But we have taken a view as Contralesa, together with the House of Traditional Leaders, to engage, extensively with the political parties that are in parliament, that are expected to be part and parcel of the parliamentary precinct and possible to form the government. We will engage, and I think we have taken a view that will engage even beyond the establishment of the 7th administration. Yeah. That engagement is needed, and we're quite aware that there is a suggested national dialogue or national indaba, and we are watching that, and we will definitely be on the table in that one, because those political parties that we have already met are of the view that they have overlooked Contralesa and the House of Traditional Leaders, and therefore they see the need for us to play a role there, because we can also foster unity. Our main interest is for our people to be united. There is no way that you can have a government that is detached from the people. Any government has to be embraced by the masses of the people. So the how it is constituted, it must therefore resonate. Yes. It must strike the chord of warmth insofar as the masses of the people.
Let's talk a little bit about that, how it's constituted, because I know it's very fresh in your memory, it's etched in your memory, and you would have had quite an extensive exposure to it, a government of national unity of 1994. Many who have talked about it, even in the briefing of the African National Congress moments ago, are saying that particular government of national unity would have been born out of a constitutional obligation. So it was clearly mapped out in the Constitution how long this thing was going to be, what would need to go in there, and when it will end, and so on and so forth. Now, today we're hearing that they're still, of course, working on a framework of how it's going to happen and hopefully how it could be incorporated into the law. Do you think that's a wise move? Is something that certainly the GNU would benefit from if it has that degree of predictability where you can go to a framework that certainly you can use as reference?
Well, I think what I have to say first is that the drafters of the Constitution did not anticipate this type of an outcome. I think in their minds at that time, and of course you could understand during that era, that they never envisaged that you would have, a situation where you don't have an outright winner. The way things are, when you look at them, this thing can go in any given way. If you assume that the opposition was to unite with their 60%, they could take a decision. And that could still happen actually going forward, because if there are issues that crop up in the floor of the parliament, you may have a situation where the horses will bolt because the opposition can simply unite against the ANC simply because the ANC maybe has been in power for the last 30 years. So I'm saying that there is a gap in the Constitution, as it were, that there is no instrument that is there which says that when things and outcomes are like this, what should we then invoke in the Constitution? Nothing has been done that flows from the Constitution, that has actually yielded what will be the result of what we will see tomorrow. And I think there is an opportunity to fix that. And certainly, these are some of the views that we're going to air when we interact. But unfortunately, there was never a negotiation in a round table after the election to where we are today. There were piecemeal consultations, one-on-one, here and there, and I don't know how they were convened. So in that way, there was a little bit a situation of a coordination that was a little bit less than candid in the manner in which it was done. I do not know how it was done, but certainly I never heard that there was a round table where certain leaders of different political parties sat around the table and hashed out a plan. So for me, I think it was more like a one-eye view, the way it was done, or a two-way view, the way I'm speculating, because it is something that has been done behind the scenes. It has not been open, but we'll hear from the outcome. Sometimes some math is done behind the curtain, but the answer is given into the public view.
Thank you very much for coming on this evening. That is the Secretary General of Contralesa, Zolani Mkiva.